Hello everyone. I'm Fatima Hirani. I work as a communication designer at the RedX Lab, and today we are here for our second part of our webinar series, design thinking webinar series. That's ideation and brainstorming. And for that, we have with here our guest speaker, Mr. Surendra Agarwal. Mr. Agarwal is a digital strategist, product manager, and user experience consultant with over 20 years of industry experience. He has led and managed various agile, high performance UX teams uh, with uh, keeping in mind the digital products and keeping a design thinking approach with business and user objectives at the main goal. He has worked with Fortune 500 clients at different locations, multidisciplinary work globally, and distributed project teams. Currently, he is working as a project manager with user UX designing at Odessa, Bangalore. And we are very delighted to have him here join us. And over to you, Mr. Agarwal. We'd love to hear from you now.
Yeah, Fatima, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And as I said earlier, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this honor, to speak at RedX event here and direct young people like you on their the latest career path of user experience and digital transformation. As uh, as you have been getting mentored by Dr. Swapnil Dambe, one of my closest friends and mentor as well, and I have worked with him for a couple of years, and I am thankful to him to give me this opportunity today to present or guide you guys in this domain. So as as decided, today I'll be speaking on uh, user research along with ideation and brainstorming. I'm not going to teach you how to do user research or how to do brainstorming and all that, but I'm just uh, going to shed light on some aspects of these processes that would help us to create competitive and sustainable products that would be used by our larger user base. So Fatima, I would kindly request you to share the presentation that I shared with you.
Is my screen visible?
Yeah, visible. Yeah, thank you. Um, so as mentioned, we'll be looking at user research, ideation, and brainstorming. Can you please move to the next screen, please? Yeah, thank you very much. So as you have, I assume that you have already known how to do user research and what is user research. But what I would stress on is we need to objectify the user research. We need to define the user research from the business objectives, or drive the business objectives through the user research. Was there a question? Sorry. Yeah, so what I was saying is, like, we need to drive business objectives through user research to build our products that would sustain in the market. Like, although user research is a user-centered design practice, it can be more than just used to create better user experiences. User research can also be instrumental in improving business results. Like, with the help of our user research, we can derive the business objectives and improve our business results. Therefore, researchers like us should always consider how business objectives, in addition to the UX considerations, could guide both test planning and the interpretation of the results that we get from the user research. Like, when determining what types of users to interview, think about what users would be most impacted by a product, and the business opportunities that different segments we get from the user research can present to the business. Like whenever we do a targeted research, we might find some results conflicting, but those results would provide us business opportunities that would give a rise to newer business segments. Similarly, while making design recommendations, we should involve more than more than simply applying the UX design principles. We should also consider what design approach would bring greater business benefits to the stakeholders or to the business. And when choosing among a few equally valid design solutions, we should always intentionally choose the one that leads to greater business benefits. For example, mostly on a shopping site, we should encourage more purchasing behavior to the user so that we derive more business results or increase revenue of the business. Yeah, thank you. uh, Thank you. Similarly, we should also focus on translating the insights that we get from the research into actions. Like we need to first develop hypothesis. For user research to deliver relevant insights, we need to think hard about what we want to explore, evaluate, and validate. It is not just simple as saying like, okay, I would like to know how to improve the usability of this mobile app, or how I want to, or how do I measure the whether this design is successful or not, or I want to know more about users' mobile usage and application. So this is not what we need to target. To get insights that translate into results, you should frame your business questions as well-defined hypothesis that you want to evaluate your research. Like target your research on this hypothesis instead of going into research wondering how to improve the usability. We should develop a few of your ideas into design alternatives that you believe would improve the specific aspects of your product, like product usability, and then we can through user research test them instead of simply measuring whether a design works, or focusing on AB testing or submit or formatting testing, which would take larger time getting results. And rather than doing that, we can focus on the user research, evaluating the key areas that we think are the user's pain point. So instead of investigating users general behavior around mobile usage, or develop some mobile application concepts that we should or we should develop a mobile application concept that hypothesize would address people's mobile needs and take them to users for feedback. Thank you. So once we go through this all pain of creating user research, we also want to validate the target users and the use cases that we have done. So it's our responsibility to review and challenge and propose new ideas about users and use cases during the course of our interviews. Oftentimes product managers or business stakeholders have already identified the target users or the use cases for the product that we are building. So our so your research is to examine that. However, as a researcher, it is our responsibility, like whenever we look at the target users or the use cases that is built, it is our responsibility to review that use case or the target users and challenge and propose new ideas around those use cases or around those target users. And and this will help in your interview process when you are doing user research. For instance, let's say nowadays, like shopping, online shopping is pretty high, everyone does that. So let's say managers think like people like Flipkart or Amazon are using their web application when using a web application for selling their products. So customers of Amazon or Flipkart, like retailers or sellers of on Flipkart and Amazon, are actually using the web applications that they have built. But in fact, there could be there could be instances that they have actually hired someone, a technical guy, to do that selling online for them. So targeting such sellers as your users will be completely wrong for doing our user research. So instead we should write use cases for those segment of people and build hypothesis around it. Next screen, please. Yeah, thank you. So coming back to user research now, since I just spoke about why online shopping has gone up because of so we all know that because of COVID, online shopping has gone up and people are using more and more digital products. Earlier, retailer or brick and mortar stores were selling their items or products through stores itself, but now people have got used to using digital platforms, online shopping, Big Bazaar, Big Basket, Amazon, Flipkart, Swiggy, whatever you say. In these COVID times, everyone started using these digital platforms, and they adopted or they got accustomed to do that, right? So we as a UX researcher should understand that the core products that were built pre-COVID era, like whenever before COVID era, whatever the products were built may not be valid anymore because of the changing scenarios and changing behavioral pattern of the users that we have built products earlier. COVID-19 has meant that user activities that our users do they are no longer doing that. There has been a shift in focus and and usage pattern, or new opportunities have come up because of COVID-19. I remember while we were doing research for uh, uh, users behavior pattern for online yeah, purchasing pattern during COVID-19, when we had a lockdown of like 3 months and it was pretty long and people were only allowed in certain times to go out. We were doing this research to understand the usage pattern of buyers, and how they are buying their groceries daily or any other items, how they are buying, and we found a lot of startling facts, startling things about the users, like like most of them, like the younger generations were going out to buy from brick and mortar stores because that was the only option available. There were fewer areas where online delivery was available. Swiggy or Zomato, they were not delivering everywhere during the lockdown period. So during this period, how were people buying their stuff? How were they? What were the thinking process? They got introduced to local brands, like local brands of soap, washing powder, detergents, or any other items that were initially there in the stores, but people were not aware of them because of the camouflage of marketing, or because they were not visiting the general stores daily or regularly, or they were stuck on buying only those branded items that they used over so many years. So there were startling results when we did this user research, like what people were buying. They were buying whatever was available. They were buying and stocking items in the pandemic era. They were buying local brands. They were using digital payments, lot of payments. Like one of the banks I have, uh, uh, people were using GPay or Phone Pay or Paytm, and doing credit card swipes, doing card swipes, whatever that they could do from distance while buying this. So all this came into research. So COVID-19 has completely changed the users. They have changed the behaviors of the users. So also, I think from the perspective of travel industry, like there were a lot of website offering lot of goodies when you book from them. So for a long time, the focus of travel industry was on optimizing the booking process, with particular attention given to the upgrades and the extras. However, uncertainty in where when people can travel has meant that their planning and decision making is taking a lot longer. Because of this COVID-19, there was ambiguity around where people were even allowed to travel. So it may be that travel is opened up, but only to select locations. But what if these locations were very lesser known, or not, not available, or flights are not there, or what if the users felt less comfortable traveling to those locations? So all this has impacted COVID, because of COVID-19. All has this been impacted. So as a UX researcher, we should always post COVID-19, we should always think of all those users that have cropped up. Those were not our users earlier. Now they have become our users, and we are supposed to design for them as well. So the users focus, as I said, the users have changed. So those older persons who were we were designing were likely to be very different from those that made it our traffic earlier, before the COVID-19 crisis began. Like I said, many retailers talk about how a lot of orders are now using their products. One of the main things to researchers think about is, what do we know about these new orders? How does this change how we should be thinking about solving the problems of these new user groups and their needs, like returning versus new, digitally inexperienced versus experienced users, old versus young users, informed versus non-informed users, whatever it may be. Knowing these new users is will be the key to the product strategy in the immediate future or beyond, as we see pre-COVID period and post-COVID period. So we have to use our analytics. We have to use our analytics team. We have to use our product teams, frontline customer teams, and explore all this data and look at things like call drivers or others for indication of how our new users may be struggling. We don't want to worry on the assumptions of your audience. We don't have to think on their assumptions. We have to work on the assumptions of how our audience have uh, become different after the COVID-19. I hope I'm not going too fast. You wanna take break to take questions?
I think we'll take questions at the end. So I think your speed is fine.
Continue? Yeah, I will continue. So, most see this, the COVID-19 period, it's a forced change for most of the users. It's important to remember that many of these changes that people are having to make have been forced upon them, but that doesn't mean that they may not discover something better and enjoy it. So the most prevalent example is those customers going from the brick and mortar stores or retailer stores to online. For example, in India, in the banking industry has been struggling a lot to migrate its offline users to digital for a long time, but is often held back due to large number of older customers who prefer visiting a branch, or either because it's habit or because they are adverse to digital solution. But between March 2020 to May 2020, one of the bank's analysis says that 6 million users downloaded their app for the first time. Now this is a huge thing for any bank, and to scale up to that huge demand of their application needs more user research and more opportunities and more business revenues to collect. So so we need to understand these new users will have different needs and understanding and wants from digital solutions than our current online customers, or they may act in different ways when things don't make sense or go right. So like I have been working in this domain for some time now, and I know that older generations are more likely to have active saving products, and therefore their use of online banking solutions may have more focus on savings rather than credit cards or current accounts, or any other kind of accounts. So the same can be said for many other industries such as groceries or electricals or furnitures, etc. So all these are trying to see how they can migrate traditional in-person users to digital space and provide a better experience. So research is the key, guys. So user research is the key in helping them to do that, helping them understand this and keep our customers interacting digitally. Yeah, Fatima, you may move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So so as we spoke right now related to how UX research or user research is important in this pre and post COVID-19 era, and driving driving our UX research through business objectives, it's also imperative, to have ideation and brainstorming. So brainstorming is an I is a essentially a it's I think everyone might be knowing that it's a essentially a group of people coming together with their prior knowledge and research in order to gather ideas for solving solving a particular problem. But let me tell you something, like, okay, Alex Osborne is the person who invented brainstorming, or would say, like, he quoted this thing as brainstorming. He named this activity as brainstorming. So he was an advertising executive who created this technique when he found that uh, there was an environment of executive managers and nothing was coming out of all those discussions and meetings. So he invented or coined this term brainstorming and came up with this idea of brainstorming. So it's actually an idea generation or ideation, and it's a form which is independent, which is dependent on appointing experienced facilitators and having experienced teams. So basically brainstorming is all about setting a safe and creative space for people for people to feel like they can say anything and be wild and propose any ideas, how they will not, and know that they will not be judged for doing so. So mostly brainstorming is uh, 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 as it's the most practiced form of ideation, and there are some basic rules or etiquettes we should follow when we are doing brainstorming. Like, we should set a time limit, like when we are doing brainstorming. So ideally the session of brainstorming has to be intentional about setting aside a time period when your team members are in a brainstorm mode. Like, in this time frame, it's the sole goal to come up with is as many ideas as possible, and then evaluate, validate each of them, debate on them, you know and during this period, judgment of those ideas, we shouldn't do any judging of these ideas, like whether it's correct or wrong. We should just brainstorm and ideate on them. So typically brainstorm will take around 15 to 60 minutes, and it can be shorter or longer depending on the problem statement that we have and the motivation and experience of the group. So mostly the best thing is to do is invest energy into shorter period of time, such as 15 to 30 minutes of high engagement of ideation. And and we should start with uh, always start with a question or a plan, or a goal, and stay focused on that topic throughout the session to get quality outcomes. Like, brainstorming sessions should always address specific questions or problem statement, like point of view, as we call them. uh, we should begin with a good problem statement or question and stick to the problem statement. Specifically, these are like, how do we do this, or how we might do this, how we may do this. Mostly write down the question clearly, what you're brainstorming on, and use those how we do it or how should we do it around that, which will get us to the ideation door. We should also defer judgment on and criticism, including all types, like verbal or non-verbal. Like, in the sessions, we should always set a positive tone and tell the participants to not criticize or reserve their criticize for later stage in the ideation process. A brainstorming session is not the time to place to evaluate ideas. You should avoid executional details like feasibility details and anything. We should be uh, let the participants be free on ideating. So we should create equal opportunity for all the participants. The best ideas often come from practitioners and students and people who might be less experienced and who dare to think differently, and not necessarily from managers or highly experienced people. So stick to the rules. Uh, Go for quantity, like uh, try to have maximum ideas come out in your brainstorming session. Encourage wild ideas in the session, so that those ideas can be ideate it upon, and you might get a better resolution or a different, completely different application out of it. As I said, encourage weird and wild ideas. So you also have to build on each other's ideas. Like uh, there could be brainstorming. There could be sessions which stimulates the building of ideas by process of association. Embrace the most out of box notions and build upon it. Be always be positive and build on the ideas of others. Like there might be people who have mental block and they might not be able to bring out ideas, but then once you take up an idea, then they might get an stimulus to build on those ideas. So brainstorming works well when participants use each other's ideas to trigger their own thinking. And you should always be visual when we are doing ideas or generating ideas during a brainstorming session. Like use images, use graphics, use pen and pencil, charts, whatever you can, to be more visual, so that everyone gets attention. And uh, you know it doesn't matter like how terrible the designs or the sketches are, but it's all it matters is the idea behind that sketch. So uh, you can do like scribing, or you can also uh, uh, write down sticky posts on a wall with idea of each member, and go on evaluating each member's ideas. So all these these things you can do when you're doing brainstorming. And um, slowly you'll be able to generate those ideas and get into funnel, get into funnel from this to generate the best ideas and take them to completion for your further research in the UX processes. Any questions, guys? I am I would want to stop here now. Encourage I would take any questions if there are.
You all can unmute yourselves to ask your questions, or you can write it down in the chat.
Well, in this, I guess there are no questions. So I think everyone is clear on what I said, or maybe I was not at all clear. Said no one understand that.
No, sir, it was clear, quite clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the comment. Very good. Well, I hope I made sense when I spoke about uh, using business objectives for user research, as well as doing researching post-COVID and pre-COVID areas, and again about brainstorming and all. I'm sure Dr. Sandeep Swapnil Damle would be mentoring you guys in all these areas better than me. He has mentored me as well. So you are already in good hands. But I wish you all the best in your mentoring, and all the best in this UX career, and welcome you in this career.
So one question I have is, generally, like when you start ideating or brainstorming, like what is the time span you look at? Like how much time do you block just for ideation and brainstorming? And the other part to that question is, like how many people, like who all do you like bring in for brainstorming or ideation, like from your team or from beyond your team? So these two questions.
Yeah, so first of all, let's understand how much time you need to do on ideation or brainstorming. So as I said, that it could be like 15 minutes to 30 minutes of exercise, but it depends on the problem statement that you have, and how you have broken up that problem statement into different different areas. You can a bigger problem statement can broken down into smaller pieces, and then you can tackle one each at a time in a session. So you come up with a uh, logical solution for all of those pieces. And so each session, and take never it's never going to work that you keep the whole day doing ideation and brainstorming. It's not going to work. You'll get mentally blocked at the end of the day. So ideally, it should be small sessions where you tackle one piece at a time. Secondly, the teams, yeah, of course, along with your team, it's always necessary to bring in analytics or BAs, the business analysts or stakeholders or product managers, and of course the end users if possible, to in the brainstorming session, so that you get unique perspectives from everyone. So because as a UX researchers, you might not be knowing the technical feasibility, but developers or business analysts or technical managers or product architects, they might be knowing the feasibility of any platforms or any what you call technology that they are going to use. So it will be helpful, from understanding from that perspective. Secondly, bringing in the key stakeholders of the or the business or product owners, because these are people, who are influenced through business objectives, and they might want to have a say in what are we going to achieve from the end solution. It's not about what the user is going to achieve, but also what the business is going to earn from that. It shouldn't be, as I said in my session at the start, that business objective should drive the user researchers, because what you are doing is of course for the end users, but ultimately business has to be run. Business has to earn revenue from that, or business has to do some get some output from that, right? So it's very necessary to bring in all these different teams into ideations. It won't be like it's not that in each and every session you bring everyone, but the key sessions where initial ideation, your UX team has already done the initial ideations, and you take 3-4 concepts to this team, extended team, where you have the BAs and the stakeholders and product owners and end users, and then brainstorm on those topics or concepts with them.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just
here.
to add,
Yeah.
just to add what Mr. Agarwal said, and just to answer this query. So typically, it is always dependent on the kind of scope you have for that particular project or a program or an initiative. So generally people think research or brainstorming or ideation is kind of a time consuming activity in the context of problem solving methods, but when it comes to the design thinking approach, it is vital to have the ideation and brainstorming, uh, you know to get the holistic aspect of what you studied as a research, or what you did as a market research or any analytical studies. So considering this design thinking as a time consuming approach, it takes a fair amount of time, okay, but it actually assures that the business aspect, the technological aspect, and the human aspect has been considered, meaning the all these key stakeholders from business, technology, and people, or a human, they are part of your ideation and brainstorming. So brainstorming or ideations cannot be done in a siloed.
Yeah.
That requires co-creation, collaborations. Okay.
Yeah.
And that takes some time. So let's say if you are solving a problem which is very complex, so it may take the overall brainstorming and ideation may take a couple of weeks. If the problem is well understood and identified, so it may take a week's time or a couple of days to brainstorm the things. depending upon the scope of work, the time to delivery varies. So that has to be, you should keep in mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you.
So, Subodh here, sir. Can you? Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So my question is, since you spoke about the brainstorming, and then what are the rules that we should keep in mind when we are doing a brainstorming, and of course, Dr. Swapnil has told about it's a lengthy process, and then people might get a little bored about what's happening around. So
Yeah.
the important question comes in, like, where to stop, since I feel like this is kind of iterative process. You change sometimes you need to change your objectives and then you want to revamp it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of very, I mean, like, it's an iterative process, but where to stop? I mean, like, what point you should say, okay, this is where I should stop brainstorming and then move ahead to the next step and then start working on the other phase.
Yeah. So, Swapnil, you want to take this question or should I go ahead? Is this question for me, Subodh?
You can go
Yeah,
ahead.
this
You
is
can go ahead.
open for.
Subodh, you can go ahead. Surendra, you can go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So where to stop? Yeah, it's a very logical question and very good question, because it's an iterative process, and as a UX researcher or a designer, we may want to keep on going and improving the design, but remember there has to be a set limit. When to stop is of course on it's our prerogative to when to stop, but remember what we are ideating for. We are ideating for certain goals that we have to achieve in the problem statement, or the solution that we have to achieve, right? So and keeping in mind the participants that we have, the different stakeholders that we have in the brainstorming session, it's an aim to everyone agrees to the solution that we are bringing out through brainstorming. So once we have that agreement, I think we should ideally stop. So and brainstorming shouldn't achieve the final end design or visual design of the solution, right? We are ideating and brainstorming for bringing out the solution of a problem, and not how the design will look and what color we are going to use. That part will come later, and we don't need to have all the stakeholders involved in that decision making. That we can keep keep to the branding team or the designing team. But as a UX researcher and as a UX team, we should stop at a point where we or everyone agree that okay, this solution is going to answer or provide solution to all the problem statement that we have we are gathered for here. And I think that's the point where we should stop. If we go on, and since it's an iterative process, and optimal, you can achieve only optimal UX or user experience. We cannot achieve the perfect UX or the perfect solution that we think we should be doing. And because our users are changing, because their behavior pattern is changing, because there are new opportunities that come up because of the changing pattern, changing environment, changing rules, changing even changing legal aspects, or new even new government that has come into place. Because of the new government, if they implement certain different rules to implement, our solution is going to need that uh, uh, that solution to be implemented that satisfies those government rules as well. So this is ever changing story, but yes, we should, for that instance, whatever problem statement we have in front of us, we should stop there where we see and all the teams agree that okay, we have reached to a point where this solution is answering all the questions to our problem, all the answers to our problem.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's pretty well understood. Yeah. Also, like, since we have the participants from a different specialization. So we have students from BD, RBA. So business design, of course, they are into design. They know how the user research is working, and then how the entire process is. So they must be following the methodology. But the RBA students maybe, or the analysis part, I would rather put in that way, where they are thinking like will come at the end, not in the initial phase, and then we'll have our inputs. But it's also important for them also, the data analyst, or the one who's actually the data scientist, you can say, who's actually going to work in that particular domain. So their contribution also is important in the initial phase. What do you think?
Yeah, if they are going to work on the product, if they are part of the team that is working on a product that we all are going to launch, then yes, their participation is important. At least their presence is important, and of course, any suggestions are welcomed from all different teams, because it's not that every time a UX researcher or a user experience designer will always provide a solution to the problem. Right. Yeah. So solutions may come out from anyone from the room, right? And it's part, and it's our task to build it in a tangible solution for the problem statement that we have.
Right. Perfect. Thank you so much, sir.
For example, I'll just quote an example for Paytm. Like earlier, before COVID-19, Paytm, even if people were using Paytm on shops and everything, there was like we just transfer money digitally from one phone to another, or from one phone number to another. There was no assistive what we can say, devices for Paytm. But nowadays, if you see any shops, there are Paytm devices available, where these are speaker devices. So as soon as you transfer any money, the speaker says, okay, this much transferred in the account. So this device opportunity, so this is the new business generated from user research done by Paytm, from this knowledge that, okay, because there is a lot of transaction being happening at shops, user or the shop owner is not able to trace which user transferred money, or which buyer sent money right now, or how much he sent. Was the transaction successful or not? And so the solution was, you have a speaker which speaks as soon as you get the money. So the shopkeeper doesn't have to every time look into his mobile phone to see if the transaction is successful or not, and then tell the user. He just listens to the device, the amount, and he's satisfied. Okay, the amount has been transferred. So these are new opportunities that comes out of user research, and the changing times. Like before COVID, it was not. After COVID, since there has been a lot of online transactions, or in-shop online transactions, there is a need for such devices in the shop.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Do we have any other query?
Sir, can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead. Tell your name and then Amit. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Amit Pant, and I'm part of the research and business analytics batch. But I wanted to ask, I want to make a related career in product management and marketing. So I wanted to know, how do you get started in product marketing? I don't have an app of my own. So how do I practice product marketing on my
own? I think your voice was cracking a bit. Can you come up with the question again?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, sir, I wanted to ask, in future, I wanted to work in product marketing and management. And so to practice that skill, I need a product or an app of my own. And I was just wondering, how do I build up my skills while studying in a university? I don't have an app of my own?
Well, so let's understand. Your goal is to go into product marketing, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but for that you don't need an app, right? Why do you need an app for product marketing? Product marketing is a skill. And there are various channels to do product marketing, and nowadays because of all these online social media like Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and everything jumping into, and essentially they are earning revenue from product marketing itself. So we have a lot of channels to do that. So social marketing, viral marketing, viraling your messages, viraling your products. Similarly, posting your products on social marketing, or engaging different groups into talking about your product. These are all part of product marketing. So these are skills that you will develop over time after understanding your platform and the kind of product you are going to market. It won't be, if you are targeting a product that is done for some remote village, social marketing might not be the correct channel for you to market. But local shops, local transport vehicles, local shops, local offices, or certain WhatsApp groups, certain government agencies, or certain shopping areas in the remote areas. These are the places where you would want to take your product marketing, because that is where your product will be visible. But for an urban area, you have all these channels. But basics is, again, understand your target users. Where are they? Where are they coming from? What they are doing? How they are perceiving your competitors' products, and from where they are, how they're using it, and from where they are getting the uh, knowledge of this product, what this product is. You have to study all this, and then only jump into product marketing.
So, thanks, Surendra. I just wanted to add a couple of things here. So, when you say marketing, it is nothing but communication. You are taking the product to the end customers or end consumers. So, there has to be effective communications. Okay, and you must learn how you effectively communicate the product or services. So there could be effective marketing mediums. Currently, we all are on the digital platforms. So you must know the digital business acumen, how the digital channels work, and take these products to the end customers. So that digital channel strategies, touch point strategies, and uh, the overall uh, end consumer strategies really help you take the products in an effective manner. So that's how the product marketing happens. Making sure you understand the targets and create the marketing material, whether it is on a digital or physical platform. You need to identify which is the faster medium for a specific product, which will take this product to the customers. So everything is digital, but physical has a role to play. So there is going to be a phygital world, and we all are living in the phygital world. So there are physical marketing, there are digital marketing. It's only about effective communications. So you must learn the digital aspect, the physical aspect, and all about your customers, the way they expect product to help them fulfill their needs, and how you can effectively strategize the product communication to the end customers. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, guys.
Fatima, any other questions, or anybody else?
sorry, sir. I just wanted to clarify my question. Like, I wanted to say that inform, like, maybe in like, what I think my product management is when you, especially when you're in a product-based company, you tweak the app, you pick which is working, which is not working. So for that, I know as a product manager, how do you chart your career in product management?
Surendra, you can take this up.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, first we have to understand what is product management. Product management is like uh, uh, you build an idea into a product. Okay, it's not that someone will come to you uh, with an idea. Maybe if there is an idea, if someone's come to you and you build that idea into a product, but once you do that, what do you do with it? There are different aspects of it, right? You have to market it. You have to, first of all, you have to validate the idea, and then understand if there is a market for such a thing, right? Because you have to sell that product. Unless you sell that product, you won't be actually creating a product and then managing it, right? So first you have to validate the idea and think of the opportunity, like, will this actually sell in a productized form? Will there be can I do a product out of it? And once you do that, once you actually have a product, it's an iterative process, like what we have in UX research. And as I told you, like, Paytm is a product, right? It's and people keep on using it, and Paytm keeps on upgrading their product, including latest features and including uh, different ideas into it. So that's how we should go about it, because product management is not a single thing. You just launch a product and just see how it is doing. It's about uh, post you launch it and post your users start using it, there's a continuous cycle of analyzing what is working, what is not working, how we can implement that. And there are, and as I have been working as a product manager in a fintech company, what we do is there's regular upgrades to the product based on different user feedback, different analysis, and different understanding and volatility of market, different uh, studies of what our competitors are doing and how they are changing themselves to meet the market needs. So all these factors needs to be taken into consideration when you are doing product management. And from an actual execution process part, you have to actually uh, break down those different ideas or those new features that you want to build into your product, and slowly implement that. And see, product is one thing that once your user starts using it, they get used to it. And suddenly, if you try to change everything because of the analysis that you have seen from the user's point of view, you bring in a new idea and try to change everything, you might actually uh, change you might actually not uh, what I would say, create a great product and user experience, but might lead to a bad product or user experience, because suddenly everything has changed and user might find it, they want to again go through everything and study again, or learn that product again to use. So so we have to be very careful when we are doing this. Like, over time you have to include new features, but slowly, and not drastically change what has been already released in the market. Like, you might take an example of Uber or even Amazon. Like, they have introduced so many features over time, but there has been never a drastic change that users have noticed, right? You will not notice a drastic change in any of these products, because they consider, and after analyzing and understanding the usage pattern and behavior, they slowly and very silently creep in features which you may not notice initially. So that's how you need to take product management. Hope I answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one follow-up question can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, like on the basis of what you said, what hard skills and soft skills can I develop or imbibe that will help me start in this career, in this line?
Okay, what soft skills or hard skill you want to develop? You should develop, right? That's the
Yeah,
question.
in this line, product line.
Product management is not only related to user experience or user research. It encompasses a lot of perspective, right from, as I said, right from the market, the competition, the platforms, the feasibility, the technology available, the users that you are building for, the business aspect, what you are going to get out of it. So all these things should be considered, and from those aspects, you need to upgrade your skills. Soft skills is one thing, but hard skills like understanding about technology, understanding about management, understanding about people, understanding about feasibility, understanding about laws, all those things need to be covered. So you have to keep your eye on each of these aspects.
So just to add what Mr. Agarwal said, in all area of functions, or let's say product management is a function, there are three layers. There is a pyramid for your growth path. It starts with technical, functional, and business. So all these steps, you would be technically sound. When you move on to the next step, which is a functional, you would be functionally sound. That means you should have a leadership ability. When you are in a technical layer, you should have sound knowledge about all aspect of technology, whether it is a process, methods, approach, a specific technique to be used. Let's say agile is the most lean agile is the most vital uh, approach or a method has been used to develop products. So product has been designed, developed, and launched in a phase-wise manner. So lean is the best way to do that, and that's how the products have been upgraded, updated, and managed. So these are the new trends you need to learn when you are uh, in the phase of technical. When you are in the phase of functional, how you can lead the whole product design, development, or marketing activities. Okay, and on top of this, there is a business. So you can actually uh, have the skills of how you can build a better products which will suffice the business objectives. So you must know how the product strategy would be. You must know the charter of your product. You must know the revenue models, business models of your products. Okay, and how it will have a better impact on both customers and the business. So you become a strategist when you reach to that particular level. So it always start with technical, functional, and business. You take any domain or any area of expertise. That's how the growth path is. Okay, to reach to a business, you have to go through the technical, functional, and business. So you cannot all of a sudden jump onto the last step. And that's a step-by-step process
Yeah.
to acquire any kind of career growth path. I hope it answers your query.
Thank you, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, guys. I think I will have to drop off now.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm honored, to speak today, and thank you, Swapnil, and thank you, Redex, for inviting me. It was pleasure interacting with you all, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Agarwal, for your kind help and your availability in spite of being busy all the time. So you managed to join this session. Thank you so much, and we look forward to continue this association. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And you have a good day. Good night.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and before all our participants sign out, I have sent in a feedback form which you all can fill to get a better idea of how you like the webinar. And also Saloni has posted studies on product design growth case studies. So if you all want to check it out, it's very helpful.
Sure. Thank you. Shall we log off?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Thank you so
Good
much
day.
for joining us.
Good night. Bye.
Yeah.